Good afternoon, Ms. Ruiz. I appreciate you seeing me this afternoon. Thank you for your time. We'll make the meeting brief because I understand that you are under time constraint and have another meeting on that. So it's okay. We can set up a subsequent meeting where we can delve in a little bit deeper into the planning. But I understand that it was kind of urgent for you to look at what addressing your concerns about the enough protection if something were to happen were to happen to Mr. Ruiz. Ms. Ruiz, is it okay if I refer to you as Maria and Mr. Ruiz as Sancho? I just feel like I really connect with you guys, and I think my conversation flows better. But thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so Maria, again, yeah, you had mentioned that you wanted to look at if you would be okay if something were to happen to Sancho prematurely, and also you also have concern about your cash flow. In other words, where your money is going on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, because you don't see that you're saving much more money than what you've had. And also you also mentioned that you're curious to see if you're on track, if you and Sancho are on track about hitting your retirement goals, retiring at age 65 and 67 for Sancho. So let's go ahead and get into that. That way we honor your time constraint here. So right here, there's a big packet. We're just going to skip to the sections where that I feel we can embellish and talk about these concerns, and at a later time we can go over the whole package on that. So, and you are going to take this home so you can look at it at your leisure and make notes on it, and then when we do regroup, we could it'll be a little bit more personalized at that point, and then we can answer any questions you might have. Okay, so and don't worry about writing all over it. It's yours, and then I could make as many copies as you'd like. So just the first page, a brief content description of what's in it, a summary of goals, risk and portfolio information. In other words, your assets and how they're being managed, how they're being held. Your risk management, in other words, the insurances that are protecting your assets, and your an estate analysis on that. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to go ahead and skip all the disclaimer. You can, if you have any questions on that, just like I said, highlight it, and we can talk about that in the future, in the near next subsequent appointment. So we'll skip right to the personal information and summary of financial goals. And right there is just pretty much your current status as far as your age and when you would like to retire. In the year 2035, you'll be 65. How much income you would like. You had mentioned $495,000. And you said you're comfortable with an inflation, factoring in inflation of 30% on that. And then there's also a description of all the household income on that. So this information is pertinent because a lot of these of the advice and the assumptions and the projections are derived from this data here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and skip right to the risk and portfolio information here, and this talks about your investment assets, how they're being managed, and if they are serving your ultimate goal of retirement there. Okay, so if we look on the first page there, we see how you feel comfortable allocating as far as in terms of risk. It's a score of 87. So what that is, Maria, is that when we initially got together, you had mentioned that you're on the conservative side for investment, and Sancho said he's on the aggressive side on investment on there. And then you also mentioned that you guys are willing and feel okay of meeting halfway. In other words, you investing a little more aggressive, and Sancho more conservative on that. So on a score of 1 through 100, 100 being the most aggressive, you guys came out as an 87. Now that is still that's still on the aggressive side. If we notice here on the bar graph, it shows a depiction of others in your age group of the type of risk they're taking, and we see the majority of it is that blue graph, somewhere between 44 and 57 risk score, and again, you guys are at an 87. But that's okay as long as you understand what the type of experience that comes with, and you understand what that means on times when things are not going according to our way, economically speaking. For example, a portfolio of 3.5 million, which is your portfolio now, this portfolio managed with a score of 87 back in the Great Recession of 2007 through 2009. At one point, you would have seen the balance draw down to 45%. You would have seen it draw down to pretty much 1.6 million. Now, if you would have stayed disciplined and consistent and followed the plan, this portfolio would have made up in 2 years or so after, and then some to this point. But nevertheless, the experience, you could see what type of experience an 87 would have provided. So that's just to add dollar numbers and percentages to what a 87 means. Okay, so right now, the way you guys are currently allocated and invested, you guys have a 57% projection chance of meeting your goal. The goal again is retiring at 65 for you, with an income of $495,000, 3% inflation. 57% is not. We don't feel comfortable with that. That's not enough to hang our hat on, if you like to say. We want it in the green or better area, which is the 80% or better. So if you could see here, we're going to recommend an idea of how we can get it to the 80%. Now we can do this a few ways. There's not only one way. So I'm just going to unpack a little bit of one way we can do that. And if we could always tweak that if we feel that that's not to your liking the way we're recommending. But what this means is spending less in retirement. So instead of the $495,000, we're going to humble that to $408,000. We're still retiring at age 65 and 67 for Sancho, but just with a lesser amount. And not only that, even to get to that point, we still need to save a little more with your annual savings. We need to save $23,000 more a year. So with those two tweaks, saving more and spending less, we can get you guys in the 80% confidence zone of meeting that goal. Like I said, there's other things we can do to change if you don't feel comfortable with that amount of savings or with spending less. There's only a certain amount of knobs we can tweak though, but we can look at those as well. Okay, so if you're okay with that, then this also means is that reallocating your assets to a different spread, diversifying it a little bit different than what you currently are now. Right now, ultimately, it's going to be from the assets you have, they're going to be a little bit riskier, a little bit more risk, and the assets that Sancho has is going to be a little bit less, like we spoke about. But right here, we can see a comparison of how the assets are currently allocated and what the recommendation is. So again, in order to get into that 80% confidence zone is we're taking a little bit more risk, allocating it a little bit different. We're going to be a lot more diverse on that. We're going to spend a little less in retirement, and we're going to save a little bit more until retirement on that. Okay, so that adjusting that will get us there. Okay, if you don't have any further questions, let's move on to the life insurance portion, because that was one of the concerns, that if Sancho were to prematurely pass away, if you will be okay. And if we look at here, it shows the life insurance needed. It's pretty much 10.5 million that Sancho's life insurance necessity is, and he has 5 million. So that blue bar shows us the additional needed of life insurance for him of another 5.5. Now on your end, you don't have any life insurance, so if something were to happen to you, then Sancho would need 1.8 million, so you would have to get a coverage with that. So if the following pages, we'll briefly go over how we came to those numbers of needing that amount of coverage. Now, this is with if somebody passes away, the goal is still to retire at age 65 for you and 67 for Sancho. And you had mentioned that you would like all debt paid off. So, and then that's going to come from would come from your current assets. And also, we spoke about the expenses of handling the estate affairs and also the final arrangements, and that's $82,000. And also, we had spoken about that if one of you weren't here, that you would like an income to sustain an income of $625,000 until retirement, and then at retirement, the $495,000. So those numbers are considered, and also your current assets, including your rental properties that you had mentioned you're willing to sell to fund the any needs at death there. So the analysis considers there. So we also see here on the following page the assets that are not considered to provide for this income if for a lone survivor on that. So that's in essence how we came up with the amount of additional coverage needed for Sancho in case something were to happen to him, and also it reflects if something were to happen to you. Now, you can see the difference is tremendous, because right now Sancho is the one with the higher income, so the need if something would happen to you is much less on that. Okay, well, Maria, that we just spoke about if you'd be okay. Now, right now, if something were to happen, if those are truly your goals, then no, we need to get a little bit more insurance, and we can talk about getting Sancho through underwriting to see how he fares with his health, and then at that point we can see how those kind of premiums look like after underwriting gets back to us. Okay, let's move on to the cash flow portion, because I know we're running out of time here for you. You had mentioned that you were concerned about where all the money is going. So we have here on the next package a summary of your budget, pretty much a summary of the money coming in and the money going out. So this way it gives us some transparency of what's going on there. So we see here the top portion gives us a summary of the total expenses for your personal. It breaks it down from personal expenses, personal insurance expenses, the condos owned by the LLC expenses, your personal condos, your principal residence, and your automobile insurance, and your taxes. Now, below that and the following pages, it just unpacks dives in, peels the onion back, if you will, on those expenses a bit further. But for example, your personal expenses total of $495,675, which racially speaking, that falls in the 50%. So in other words, of your total income is $1,068,000. So 50% of that income is being spent on personal expenses, which is fine. That's the benchmark ratio is somewhere between 40 and 60. You're right down the middle. You're fine in that area. But moving on to your personal insurance, it's $25,650 that you're spending a year on that, and that ends up being 7.5%, which is also within the benchmark ratio. And then we go to the condos. Pretty much the mortgages that are being spent there and all the expenses there, and that's $56,697 is of your income is being is utilized for that. And also your Las Vegas personal condos are in is 15%. The expense is $30,000. That's 15% of your income. That's below the benchmark of 36%. So that's you're doing good there as well. So, and then we look at the principal residence, $87,000 of your income. That's also 15%. That's within the benchmark as well. So then we move on down to the automobile insurances. That's 7.5%. Of your income is being spent on that. That's well within income, the benchmark ratios as well, Maria. And then your taxes. Now this is where you're over the benchmark here. You're paying $425,000 annually on taxes. So I think the areas that need to be addressed, because you are right on your suspicions that you are actually spending more than what's coming in. There's more going out in expenses. So I think some areas that could be addressed there is the taxes, and also on your investment properties. You're actually negative there as far as what the inflow is on rent and the outflow on mortgage. So maybe looking at a refinancing, selling one of the properties, or both. There also going back to the taxes, as we're going to talk about a SEP IRA for you and Sancho that might help there as well. And also maybe reassessing if you decide to keep the investment properties, reassessing the property value with the county to maybe hopefully lower the annual taxes on the property there as well. And also redirect some of your current assets to qualified assets where you can deduct those contributions, allocations from income. And also, I see that you guys are charitably inclined, and we're also going to talk a little bit more about donating through undervalued shares as opposed to donating with cash. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, and there's a lot more of ideas and areas we can look at to hopefully get your income having some discretionary at the end of discretionary funds at the end, as opposed to negative funds at the end here. Okay, so for now, Maria, I took a lot of your time. We're going to leave off at that. We're going to, if it's okay with you and Sancho, we're going to get to him through underwriting. So I will need to reach out to him to get a little bit more information and get the ball rolling with that, get him through underwriting to get the appropriate amount of coverage with life insurance. And then in a subsequent meeting, we're going to dive a little further into your cash flow on that. But for the most part, I think regardless of what we decide to do with the cash flow, I think a SEP IRA is imperative. So if it's okay with you and Sancho, I'm going to reach out to your tax professional and bring up this idea just to make sure that you guys do qualify for it. My understanding is that you do, but I just rather hear it from another professional as well. So I'll reach out to your CPA, get some feedback there, and then from that conversation, if we move forward, I'll reach out back to you to get some signatures to get the SEP IRAs going, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to fund this IRAs, from which of your current assets we're going to use to fund that. So okay, so a couple things there is life insurance and SEP IRA to address the cash flow issues there. Okay, in our next meeting, just so you can, next week, we'll talk about the disability insurance, a long-term care insurance, which is additional hedge protection on your assets there, and we're also going to maybe talk a little bit about estate analysis. Thank you, Maria, for your time. I really enjoyed going over this with you. We'll talk soon.